Let's discuss the histology of ureters and urinary bladder. As we know, the urine is transported by the ureters from the renal pelvis to the urinary bladder, where it's stored until emptying by maturation via the urethra. The calyces, renal pelvis, ureter, and bladder have somewhat similar histologic structure, with the walls becoming gradually thicker closer to the bladder. The mucosa of these organs is lined by the unique stratified transitional epithelium or urothelium. Let's see the structure of ureter. If we take a cross-section, we will find that the ureter is formed of wall and lumen. The lumen is narrow and stellate. It's narrow and stellate like that because the smooth muscles found on the lumen of the ureter, as we will discuss later, contracts, in addition to the presence of elastic fibers. This contraction makes the mucosa folded, so the lumen will be narrow and irregular in shape. How does the ureter adapt to its function? The ureter descends to carry and conduct urine from the renal pelvis to urinary bladder. We found that the ureter is formed of three layers: mucosa, musculosa, and adventitia. The mucosa is formed of transitional epithelium and underlying connective tissue corium, which is also rich in elastic fibers. The epithelium, called transitional, as it can adapt to change in volume. Note that the transitional epithelium or urothelium rests on corrugated basement membrane, which allows distension of the ureter so small stones can be avoided in urine. This is a microscopic picture of urothelium. Cells of this epithelium are organized as three layers: a single layer of small basal cells resting on a very thin basement membrane, an intermediate region containing from 1 to several layers of more columnar cells, and a superficial layer of very large bulbous cells called umbrella cells that are occasionally bi or multinucleated and are highly differentiated to protect underlying cells against the cytotoxic effects of hypertonic urine. After finishing the mucosa layer, let's move to musculosa and adventitia. The musculosa is formed of smooth muscles. The upper two-thirds of ureter has an inner longitudinal and an outer circular layer of smooth muscles. The lower third has an additional outer longitudinal layer, so we get an inner and outer longitudinal, and in between them, circular layer of smooth muscles. All of these layers are separated by abundant elastic connective tissue. Contraction of these muscle layers produce peristaltic waves which propel urine along it towards urinary bladder. The adventitia formed of fibroelastic connective tissue containing blood vessels, nerves, and lymphatics. Let's move to urinary bladder. It's pretty similar to the histologic structure of ureter. The innermost layer of the urinary bladder is the mucosal layer, which is lined also by transitional epithelium, the urothelium, which is indicated by the arrow. When the bladder is relaxed, the epithelium layer appears to be made up of rounded to cuboidal cells. If the bladder becomes distended, then the urothelium can be stretched out and ends up consisted of stratified squamous cells. This microscopic picture shows an empty bladder. When the bladder is empty, the mucosa is highly folded, and the urothelium has bulbous umbrella cells. This one shows a full bladder, where the mucosa is pulled smooth, the urothelium is thinner, and the umbrella cells are flatter. The lamina propria and the urothelium both make up the mucosa. Note that there is no gland except around the urethral orifice. These are a group of mucous glands that help against the corrosive effect of urine. Underneath the mucosa is the musculosa, which consists of smooth muscles. The smooth muscle of the bladder consists of three layers: inner longitudinal, middle circular, and outer longitudinal. Distal to the bladder neck, the inner longitudinal layer becomes circular to form the internal urethral sphincter, which is involuntary sphincter. In most places, the smooth muscle runs irregularly except at the bladder trigone. This is the bladder trigone, making the three layers hard to discern. Adventitia. The urinary bladder is covered by fibroelastic connective tissue, except the superior surface, which is covered by serosa, which represent the peritoneum. Thank you.